So now that the router is running and attached to the computer, we're going to go to the address bar and type in the default address for the LAN, which in this case is 192.168.1.1. And you'll probably see a certificate warning pop up here. Now, this is because the PFSense router is using a self-signed certificate by default. But we're going to go ahead and allow this for now, and it's going to take us to the login, and we're going to log in as the default user, which is admin and PFSense. Now what you're going to see is the wizard, which is the initial startup wizard for the PFSense system. And for the most part, we're going to be skipping past all of this. So I'm just going to be clicking next through all of these pages. All these options are going to be able to be changed later on, when we're going to worry about that later when it comes up. But for right now, we're going to leave everything as default and just keep clicking next. And at the end, click on reload, and it will reload the system with the default option selected. And just click next on that. And now you agree to the terms and conditions. And then close this window. And it's ready to go. So one thing we can do now, even though it was in the wizard we just went right past, is we can change the default password. And in this case, we're going to be changing it for the admin account, or the admin user. So in that, we're going to go to System at the top, User Manager. We have the Admin System Administrator. We're going to click on this Edit button right here. And now we can type in a new password. And it can be whatever you want. I'm just going to make a password in this case. Press Enter. And now we have the administrator account with a new password. So if we click this button up here to log out, we can log in again, admin with the new password. And it will log us in. You can also have multiple users on this device. For example, you can go to User Manager and I can create a new user. And you can set various options for this, like the user can't log in. This is done mainly for certain services for the most part that shouldn't be logging in to begin with. But for the most part, you can set it to be just a normal user and give them permissions over parts of the router, as if you would like them to be able to edit some things but not other things and that kind of thing. Where user accounts really come in handy though, at least in the stuff that I've done from my experience, is for VPNs. And VPNs will use the user accounts to allow or disallow people to log into the VPN. So PFSense, the system, has a VPN server on here. So it has several different types of VPNs: IPsec, L2TP, and OpenVPN. If you've used a VPN before, I'm sure you've seen advertisements for them either on TV. YouTubers usually have a lot of advertisements for VPNs, XVPN service, whatever it happens to be. This is a very similar setup to what they use. For those VPN providers, they have a much more robust system in place. You can make your own VPN within PFSense using the OpenVPN server. But before we do anything with VPN servers, I'm going to make a separate video on VPNs themselves to sort of give you an idea what VPNs actually are compared to what they're advertised as, because those are pretty different things. I think for the rest of this video, I'm just going to show you some of the more used places within the VPN that we'll be using later on. So if we go back to the home page with just clicking the PFSense icon there, we can start off by going into interfaces. So I'm going to click on that and then click on the WAN. Right now there's nothing attached to the WAN interface, so this is pretty much just going to be, nothing's going to be here. If we switch to LAN instead, we're going to have our interface that our computers connect to. In this case, we have the IP4 address, which is 192.168.1.1, which is the same address that we're attached to right now, or you accessing through our the web browser. If we go back up here, we can go to Firewall, go to Rules, and we can see some of the rules that are currently in place. Our computer right now, though, has been assigned an IP address that can be used through this router, and it was assigned from the router through the DHCP service. So if we want to see what IP address, I see our record for our IP address in the system, we can go to Status, DHCP Leases, and right here there is an IP address, 192.168.1.101, which corresponds to my current laptop. On your computer, it'll probably be different, or it could be something similar. Your MAC address will be different. It'll have your host name, which will be different. We can look at the details of the DHCP system. If we go to Services and DHCP Server. So right down here, we can see that it has the DHCP server running. And here's some of the information for the DHCP service. So we have the base address, which is our subnet here, the subnet mask, which means that since it's all 255 in the first 3 columns, that means that this portion of the IP address is the one that's going to be static. And then this portion at the end here is the one that's going to be assigned dynamically. And that's calculated down here for us through this range. So 1.1 through 1.254, that's the range that's available for this network for valid hosts to connect to. And the range being used by the DHCP server is 10 to 245. So while the range can be increased, generally you want to keep like some IP addresses out of the range for the DHCP server in case you want to have like a server or something that needs to have a static address. Scrolling down, we can see other information for the DHCP server. Right now, there's pretty much nothing. It's basically a setup as simple as it can get, but you can make other adjustments to it, like you can force it to assign DNS servers through the lease, which we're going to talk about all this stuff later on. You can set the gateway and all that, but for right now, we're just not going to worry about that. I think to wrap up this video, though, I'll show you probably one of the most important areas of the system, which is the status drop-down menu. If you click on this, you can see the various areas of the system we can check. For example, if we want to check on the services that are running, and if they're running properly, we could go down to Services, click on that, and it will show us a breakdown of the currently running services and if they're running or not. In this case, we have one service that's not running. If we want to look at the system logs, we can go to Status, System Logs. We can show basically all the logs from the entire system, from the operating system. Click on that. I'll show you the operating system logs. We can look at the firewall logs up here for firewall. This will show us packets that have been denied, or optionally, you can also show packets that have been approved, but that's an extra step you have to take to do that. But for right now, we can see that the firewall is working and it is blocking things. We can view who's logged in and login attempts through authentication. So here's the authentication logs. We can pretty much ignore everything above this because you can see it goes back pretty far, but if we scroll down to the bottom here, we can see that we have successful logins for the user admin, and it gives the IP address of where that login came from. So hopefully this video was somewhat enlightening. PFSense is a very, very large system, so it's going to take a while to get through all of it. In the meantime, I would encourage you to go through, look at the different things, open up menus, press buttons, open up pages, make changes, just test stuff out. You're not going to break the system. If you do end up doing something that if you lock yourself out of the system or something, there's a video that I made earlier that shows you how to factory reset. So any changes you make can be undone. So, have at it. Take a look at things, click buttons, just have fun.